Hey there, welcome to the DFS build. This channel is mostly known for DFS, daily fantasy sports advice, and that is very true. As we speak, you could still catch fresh videos for MLB and NBA and even a little bit of UFL as the season winds down. So definitely subscribe if you're interested in anything DFS because we'll be handing out picks and analysis and strategy as we go along, and certainly for the NFL season too. But also, what I like to do is just cover fantasy sports in general. I've been playing fantasy football and most fantasy sports for most of my life at this point. And I love it, and love dynasty stuff too. So, as I go over stuff in videos like this, I will just touch on it as I see fit, as it relates to different league formats. So, today we're going to be looking at 2024 fantasy football ADP values, specifically at the quarterback position. Obviously, there are a lot of really good guys we can reach for up top. And I mean, obviously, you may have your own personal strategy. One of mine is to not go get one of the top guys in redraft. Obviously, if you're in a super flex league or a dynasty league, you may want one of those studs like Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, or obviously the new shiny toys are CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. Can't blame you there. I have a lot of Anthony Richardson personally. And I don't have any issue with those other guys I mentioned either. For Dynasty, I don't think it really matters as far as any correlation to redraft. It's like you go get your guy. I mean, especially for Superflex, you go get your guys that you think are going to perform together in those two spots, and no qualms there. So some of these guys I'm going to go over kind of can go both ways. They can go for redraft, specifically for their current ADP, but also they're going to be guys that I obviously don't hate for dynasty as well. All right, let's get it going here. We got Kyler Murray. I didn't spell his name right there. Okay, here we go. Kyler Murray for the Cardinals. So last year, he's coming off that torn ACL. He didn't finish the year before, only played 11 games. And then he came in and only played 8 games for the Cardinals last year and was still really productive, though. I believe he was, let's see, where was he at here? For points per game, he ended up being quarterback 9. So he was quarterback 9 in points per game, and he came in, obviously naturally a little bit rusty in middle of the year and not all the great weapons that you would hope you'd have. But this year, obviously, he's going to be 100% healthy. And looking back at his history, we know what he's capable of. Obviously, he had a quarterback 10 finish in 2021 and 2 top 6 finishes before that. So I would imagine his rushing ability would only improve a year and a half out from an ACL surgery at this point. So I expect him to be much more dynamic and impactful as a runner, even though, I mean, it really didn't affect him that much last year. He still had 244 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns on the ground in just 8 games. So that's, you extrapolate that over the course of a full season, that kind of puts him on pace for where he had been in the previous 2 seasons. So I'm not worried at all about his rushing ability, and I very much like his ceiling. Kyler Murray, though, let's see here. Yeah, he's going, like I said, quarterback 10, and we know what he's capable of. I think it's like the value is like bordering on just about right and not good enough. Two big reasons. Number one, his past production has shown us that he is a top 10 quarterback at a bare minimum, as long as he stays healthy. When you have that rushing floor, that just gives you an instant edge on, a lot of these other guys who obviously don't. Another thing is he's got a really nice safety blanket in Trey McBride, who revealed himself to be a bit of a stud last year. So he's kind of sliding in as the number 2 guy. And then he inherits a legit stud alpha wide receiver 1 in Marvin Harrison Jr. So, I mean, quarterback 10 is the starting point for Kyler Murray, in my opinion. And the only real question comes down to health. So in redraft, I think he's a bit of a value at the moment. How much higher he actually climbs as far as his end of season production remains to be seen. But I think if you're getting him as the 10th quarterback off the board, that is a very, very nice value. Even if the value is just about appropriate, I would love for Kyler Murray to be my starting quarterback in redraft leagues at that point in drafts for sure. As far as it relates to dynasty, love him as a dynasty quarterback too. He's only 26 years old. Obviously, he's exhibited that ceiling. The health risk over the past couple of years is not ideal. And running quarterbacks do historically tend to flame out over time, but I still think he's got probably at least 3 or 4 elite seasons left in him, barring an unforeseen major injury. All right, next up we have Brock Purdy. Yeah, you go from a running guy like Kyler Murray to Brock Purdy. Make it make sense, right? Well, it does make sense when you have an offense as stacked as Purdy does. I mean, he's got Christian McCaffrey, he's got Debo Samuel, he's got George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, assuming him and Debo don't get traded. And then they went and drafted Ricky Pearsall. So like the cupboard is full for the 49ers. And it's never been for me about Purdy's actual talent, which by the way, he is an underrated passer. But it's about his surroundings and his system. It's an amazing system. Helped him get 31 passing touchdowns, and he's also not like a terrible athlete, a little bit underrated in that regard. I don't think he's going to get monster production on the ground, but he can steal some scores and push for 150 to 200 yards on the ground as well. Not a guy we're going to be promoting like, oh, but he can also run, but he is not completely, inept in that regard either. So Purdy right now is coming in as the QB 11, so just behind Kyler Murray. So once again, I think that value is just about right for redraft, but I still think he's a value because of the system he's in and the guys he's working with. So I would probably like him right about there ahead of guys like Justin Herbert and Jared Goff. And it's entirely possible as the quarterback 6 last year that he ends up finishing inside the top 10 again and being an even better value than we think he is right now. All right, moving on. We got Tua, and he is being even more disrespected than our boy Brock Purdy over here. And much like Purdy, he has a lot to work with in Miami. Their running back room even got better when they brought in Jalen Wright, and obviously they still have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So the Dolphins are loaded. They're ready to rock. He was quarterback 9 last year, quarterback 15 the year before. It seems like he just keeps ticking up a little bit. And I mean, he was even better than that the previous year, but he missed a few games due to injury. So, I mean, he's been a stud 2 years in a row. There's really no reason not to like him. But for some reason, he's quarterback 14, according to Fantasy Pros ADP. Right now. So of the guys I've been discussing so far, he's the best value in my opinion. He doesn't offer much as a runner, but everything else has looked good and his weapons are amazing. So there's just no reason to hate on Tua. There's something about him. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because he's a lefty. Maybe it's because he got hurt in college, or maybe it's just because there was controversy over like how committed the franchise was to him before Mike McDaniel got there. I don't know what the deal is. The reality is he has proven to be good. And he's definitely been good for fantasy football. So if I can get him as a quarterback 14 in redraft, I'm very excited about that. Now, for the reasons I just mentioned, I'm a little hesitant to build my dynasty rosters around Tua. But at age 26, with the guys he has, I don't have a problem with it. Me personally, I might be looking in other directions, especially when you have like Tyreek Hill, who may be retiring in a couple of years, like he's kind of alluded to. That said, Tua as quarterback 14 after finishing quarterback 9 last year and really better than, right around that range when you look at points per game the previous year, I think he's a definite risk or definite candidate to go quarterback 10 by the year's end. So he's another really good value that I definitely want to keep in my player pool as far as when I'm drafting, and I do not mind acquiring him at all when it comes to dynasty. Next guy is Trevor Lawrence. He's been making the rounds a little bit lately for a couple of reasons. Obviously, he's got the contract extension that they're discussing. Sounds like the franchise remains committed to him. For dynasty, 24-year-old guy who has some good weapons around him, has displayed elite ability, and brings in a nice rushing floor. All of that sounds pretty good to me for dynasty. So I don't mind acquiring him, especially since for some reason people are down on him because his interceptions went up last year and his touchdowns went down. So like overall, he dropped. But 2 years ago, he was quarterback 8. And there's a reason for that because he has a solid rushing floor and he's a lot better than people think he is. He also, I think he ranked 9th in wide receiver drops. So he did not benefit from his wide receivers bailing him out as much as some guys did. Despite the decline, he was still QB 13. So if we're looking at where he's coming at now, QB 16, that immediately is a value to me. If you look at a guy who's capable of getting back in the top 10, if not more, I mean, this is a screaming value. I am all ears if you are hesitant to go get Trevor Lawrence in dynasty leagues, especially if nobody wants to pay for Trevor Lawrence in dynasty leagues. You don't want to go spend 2 first-round picks or whatever else in a super flex league. It just doesn't feel very good. The reality is he's a 24-year-old, former first-round overall or number 1 overall pick, and the franchise is going to commit themselves to them, and he has a good supporting cast. They brought in Brian Thomas from LSU, very explosive deep threat. They still have Christian Kirk. They still have Evan Ingram. They have Travis Etienne. Like, they have talent. So this is too late to be drafting Trevor Lawrence. I think he's falling too far, and I'm not really understanding the reasoning. He's an elite value for me. So I am loving the idea of starting a lot of redraft leagues this year with Trevor Lawrence as my QB1. That's very appealing to me for sure. All right, last guy in is going to be Jaden Daniels, actually. Oh, it's Sam Howell. Oh, no. What does that mean? Well, it means that Sam Howell was the Commanders quarterback last year. And despite getting benched in the game and like having some really bad games, he still finished as QB 12. That is largely due to what? Well, Sam Howell is a little bit underrated due to his ability to throw the long ball, and he was a bit of a punishing runner who could be effective as a rusher in the red zone. 5 touchdowns on the ground, 263 rushing yards, and he had almost 4,000 yards and 21 touchdowns through the air too. So the problem with Sam Howell was he was sometimes indecisive. He sometimes took too many bad risks. He had 21 interceptions thrown and 2 lost fumbles. So the Washington kind of figured this turnover machine just wasn't their dude, so they traded him to Seattle. By the way, I would not be shocked if he ends up taking over as Seattle's starting quarterback probably by the end of next year, just if Geno Smith struggles. Sam Howell's not that bad. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. Anyways, it's not about Sam Howell. It's about Jaden Daniels. The point is, Sam Howell was basically everything that Jaden Daniels is going to have was QB 12. Jaden Daniels is a better prospect. He's a much better player, much more explosive rusher. He was a total beast as a Heisman winner for LSU. So naturally, if the guy before him could be QB 12, and then he comes in and Austin Eckler is there, we got Jahan Dotson, we have Scary Terry, and they even added a guy. Who would they add? Let's see. I know they added somebody. It's not pulling up here. Classic. Very good time. It's not pull up. The point is, the cupboard is not bare for Washington either. They have a full list of weapons for Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels himself is a weapon. The guy can fly as a runner. Yes, he has a slight frame, but guess what? So does Lamar Jackson. That worked out pretty well, right? So of all these guys, Jaden Daniels to me feels like the number one value right now at the quarterback position. The problem is it's only May 23rd. Not a lot of drafts are actually firing off yet. So we're looking at just the data that's over there at fantasypros.com. So will it stick? Will Jaden Daniels be quarterback 18 when we get to July or August? I don't think so. I do know, though, if you're doing your drafts now, these guys are all guys that we should be targeting, and they're being drafted way too late. And hopefully Jaden Daniels stays around this range so we can benefit from him immensely. I mean, do you remember the hype that was going around Anthony Richardson? Well, Anthony Richardson last year came in with kind of the same talent level and the same expectations and the same projections and smashed that as a runner. If he hadn't gotten hurt twice and then obviously missed the entire year, his fantasy points per game average was going to be obscene and basically on par with Josh Allen. So could Jaden Daniels in year one approach number one overall territory? I'm not saying that quite yet, but I'm also not saying that. I'm not saying that. So Jaden Daniels right now is my number one quarterback value, but any of these guys, if you draft with them as the quarterback 10 or later, I think you are running away with really good value at the quarterback position. All right, that's going to do it for me. Hopefully help you out. And by the way, this is going to change a lot. It is still May 23rd. We have 3 months to go before the NFL season starts, but hopefully it helps you get ready for your draft at the quarterback position. If you want to see more videos like this, give this one a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. All that does a lot to help the channel grow. Thanks for watching, and good luck.